Well, the Nobel Prizes are in, and they've been announced. We're going to talk about it right after this. www.freegrace.in. Hi, I'm Lucas Kitchen. Thanks for being with me. This is More to the Story, where we examine what's going on in the world from a Christian perspective. You can subscribe at freegrace.in or any of the platforms that you are either watching or listening on. So let's take a look at the Nobel Prizes for this year. A prize was awarded in pioneering of quantum information science. This is the Physics Award. I researched this a little bit because this is pretty heady stuff, and I felt like I had kind of a clear view of it when I read it, but now it sort of escaped me. But basically, these physicists have been able to kind of overturn a long-standing debate between what we would call the quantum understanding of the universe and an older idea that some used to call the hidden variables. Maybe it's still called that, I'm not sure, but Bell's inequalities. You can go look that up, but it moves our understanding forward on physics, and so that's why they won that. A chemistry award for click chemistry. A medicine award for something that has to do with evolution, a Nobel Prize in literature. I went and read about the author, and there's a lot of memoir and some historical autobiography in the third person, and nothing there really stood out to me. But I will tell you, the Nobel Peace Prize for the year, it lined up with kind of what you might expect. It's going to two groups, looks like two organizations and one individual. These groups and individual are from Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. You can imagine the nature of what they would have had to do to win a Nobel Peace Prize in that area. So you can go and find all of that and more at nobelprize.org. I thought it'd be fun to share a couple of interesting little data points about the Nobel Prize program, so to speak. So what a lot of people want to know is, what do you get if you win a Nobel Prize? Is it just a plaque? Is it a medal? Well, you do get a medal. You get a diploma, is what they call it. But you also get cold, hard cash. How much cash? Well, initially, Alfred Nobel, he lived at the turn of the last century. He left his estate, which at the time was about 31 million. It's not dollars. It's whatever the Swedish. I think it's the Kronor, the Swedish kronor is their currency. He left 31 million SEK is the shortened version of that. And in today's economy, that would be over like $1 billion. He was very, very wealthy. So he left that money to be invested so that it then could be given to individuals who demonstrated excellence in their fields. And so this year, the awards for each full Nobel Prize is going to be about 10 SEK. That equals, in the American economy, that equals close to about $9 million. Boy, that was a lot of information to get to that. Why couldn't I have just said that? $9 million if you win a Nobel Prize. Now, the Nobel Prizes are sometimes shared among multiple people, but, dividing up $9 million, well, I'd be okay with that even if you had to divide it a few times. So there have been 975 Nobel Prizes given over the last century or so. One interesting thing that I noticed as I was exploring nobelprize.org is that there are a number of years where no Nobel Prizes were given. So here are the prizes. There's a prize in physics, one in chemistry, one in medicine, one in literature, one in peace, and then kind of the one that's come later to the game is the prize in economic sciences. So I bet you could guess which one of those prizes has the most years that it wasn't given. It's the Nobel Peace Prize. So there were years where physics, chemistry, medicine, literature weren't given, but the Nobel Peace Prize it has the title for the most years that it didn't go to anybody. Most of those years have to do with World War I, World War II, and other international conflicts. It's hard to give a prize for peace in a time of war. So they have stipulations where the money for that year will be held for the next year, and then if there's no one to give it to for the next year, something happens with the money. The youngest Nobel Prize laureate was actually one I'd heard of, Malala. Do you remember Malala? She got the Peace Prize in 2014, and at the time she was 17 years old. The next youngest was Lawrence Bragg, 1915. He got a prize in physics, and he was 25. So some young ones in there. The oldest I think I saw was 89 years old, or I think that's right, 87 or 89. So it really spans. It's not necessarily just, actualized full adults. Even young people get them, but so that was kind of interesting. Another data point that I found kind of sad but not terribly surprising is that there have been a number of prize winners who have been forced to decline the prize. There was a group who were forced to decline under Adolf Hitler. He forced them to say we don't accept the prize. And then there was one, Boris Pasternak was forced under the Soviet Union to decline the prize. So, and then there's others that have declined the prize on their own volition for their own personal reasons. So anyway, those are some interesting data points about the Nobel Prize. Now, all of that kind of led me to think, as you know, this is a show that is trying to help us come at things from a Christian perspective. The Nobel Prizes remind me of something that we see in Scripture. And it is the concept that one day Christians, if you've believed in Jesus for everlasting life, one day you will receive a reward. You will receive a prize for your work for the Lord. And that's right, you are working for the Lord. You may be an absentee employee, or you may be a very faithful employee, but once you believe in Jesus, you are expected to work, and the quality of your work will determine the kind of reward that you get once we get to the kingdom of heaven, or I guess we should say once the kingdom of heaven comes to us. So note these 3 verses that I've put together to kind of help us see the scene. Romans 14:10 to start with, we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. So that's talking about a future day where we will stand before Jesus' judgment seat. So we'll all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. So then each of us shall give account of himself to God. So we'll stand before that judgment seat, and then we'll give an account of our life, how we lived while we were in the body, and each one will receive his own reward according to his own labor. So Jesus died to wipe away your sin. He died so that you could have your reserved place in the kingdom of heaven, but your obedience to Christ will determine your eternal reward. That's what we call this sometimes, is eternal reward. And so that is a very big motivator for Christians that understand it, that know it. Now, I spent years not really knowing about this. I don't know why, but it's not taught in churches as much as I think it ought to be. And because of that, I've written a book about this subject called Eternal Reward. Now, an older version was called Eternal Rewards for some theological reasons. I've actually changed the title to Eternal Reward, but you can get that book anywhere where you get books, Amazon, on our website, freegrace.in, if you want to explore this topic. If you've never heard of it, I would highly suggest you consider taking a look at this book or the videos on our website that we've done about this. Well, I hope that today you'll feel motivated by the idea of a future eternal reward waiting for you based on your faithfulness. That's all I've got for you today. I'll be back with you soon.